Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to ASI Hour. We are so glad to have you again. And actually, it's incredible because this is the seventh edition of ASI Hour already. And time flies. Next week, we have a very special event. We're going to talk about that. Probably most of you know. This is going to be the last ASI Hour before the next one, which is going to be in August. So next week, we're not going to have ASI Hour again because of our ASI virtual convention. We're going to talk about that at the end. And today, I have a very good friend, Chris Matz, with us. And we asked Chris to share some of his knowledge, which is very rich. I've known Chris for a long time now. I've worked with Chris in different projects. I've been a client of Chris. And also ASI actually has benefited a lot from the talent and the knowledge of Chris Matz. Chris, welcome today to ASI Hour.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share with you guys today. Absolutely love ASI, the mission of ASI, in equipping lay people, business people, ministry people all over really the world, and helping them use their services, their talents for God in ministry. And so I'll share a little bit about my...
Just before that, Chris, we usually ask a couple of questions to our audience so we can warm up and know a little bit more of people that are joining us. And we have our first poll question. We're going to have several poll questions today. And I'm going to share the first one. We know a little bit where you're from. So I'm going to share the poll right now, and you can participate. Let's see the answers here. And the question is, what time zone are you joining us from? So Chris, let's see all these people have a very good attendance. So they actually are breaking some records, Chris. We have more than 75 people now, which is great. You know, we're very, very
wonderful,
enthusiastic about the ASI Hour. Every single week is increasing. And we see today that actually the results are most of our attendees are from the East Coast. We have 49%, right, from your area, right? Yep. And we have some obviously from the Pacific, Central, and 20% of our audience outside of the US. Isn't that great? So there are ASI enthusiasts all over the world. That's really, really good to have you all here. So that's excellent to know where you're coming from and continue to participate. And now I turn it to you, Chris, and I'd love to hear your story because I know it. It's inspiring in the beginning. So you can tell a little bit. I know they've been in the church relatively a short period of time. I'll say like 5 years now, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 4 years.
So why don't you go ahead and share your story and then your expertise in this area of what you have learned after you spent $1 million in digital advertising 1 year. That's a lot of money. Go ahead, Chris.
Absolutely.
And before, we did forget another thing. Today we're forgetting a lot of things. Essential. We need to pray and ask God to be in our presence today. And I'm going to do that. And then we'll get you.
Perfect.
Let's pray, Chris. Dear Lord, thank you so much for another ASI Hour. We are now in the 7th edition, and you have blessed us so much with so many different people, perspectives, themes, and areas that we've learned. This ASI Hour is an opportunity for us to come together as ASI community and learn about specific things from people that are talented, that can share with us, and most importantly, to put these things that we learn into action, into our businesses, and also most importantly, our ministries, our sharing of God, and our sharing of our faith to the world. We ask you that you be among us in our presence here today. You inspire Chris. In Jesus' name we ask, amen. Go ahead, Chris. It's all yours.
Thank you, Ruben. Yeah, so I became an Adventist a little bit over 4 years ago. Prior to becoming an Adventist, I had a lot of experience in advertising, sales, entrepreneurship, business, that sort of thing. And that's what actually led me to seeking out spirituality in the first place. I didn't grow up in a religious background, and when I started working in different fields in entrepreneurship and advertising, I started getting exposed to this self-help personal development world, which led me into the New Age, Eastern mysticism, really religion and movement. And from there, I started getting really interested in spirituality, went down this long rabbit hole of seeking that out for a while. And along the way, a good friend of mine gave me a book called A Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. That really helped me understand how Christianity has a lot of compelling evidence and support outside of the Bible, historically, archaeologically, that supports the religion. And so I became a Christian. And in that, I found a lot of confusion between the different schools of thought and denominations. And so I started seeking out answers. And along the way, a relative of mine was reaching out to me, telling me about the Adventist church. I didn't really grow up around this relative. I knew that they were Christian, but I didn't really know what they were. And so when they started telling me about the Adventist church, I kind of just checked that off and said that that couldn't be the one, because some of the things that they had told me seemed very peculiar. And so from there, I just kept searching. And long story short, I ended up doing a bunch of Bible studies on my own, and just went all in with evangelism. I kind of put this entrepreneurship, advertising, sales thing on the side, and I went canvassing. I did Bible working. I worked with a ministry. And along the way in that journey, I just saw this very direct correlation between evangelism and advertising and sales and marketing. And God put it on my heart to start helping some ministries. So I started volunteering, helping some ministries in the conference that I was in at the time. Used digital advertising for evangelism. And the business that I have now, Advent Digital Marketing, just grew out of that. I started working with a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners in the church, professionals who have their own companies, as well as a lot of the top ministries in the church. And we've been able to really help a lot of people increase their revenue, which ultimately is good for mission because they give the money back into the mission. And then also we've been able to help a lot of ministries increase donors or spread awareness about what they're doing as a ministry, to acquire attendees at their events, and all of these different things. And then among that, one of my favorite things to help ministries and churches do is help them use these digital technologies to generate leads of interest, people who are interested in studying the Bible to get to know more about Jesus Christ. And so it's been a really, really, really big blessing to me to be able to use my talents to serve the cause of Christ, to hasten the second coming of Christ. And so it's been an absolute blessing getting to really work in the church in this capacity. And so I'm really excited to share some different things with you guys today. But before I get into the nitty-gritty details, I really want to understand a little bit more of your guys' experience and just know who I'm talking to. So Ruben's going to pull up some poll questions here just so we can put some feelers out and kind of gauge where you guys are at.
There you go. Let's see the experience and where our audience has related to business and ministry. How many of you own a business or run a ministry? So we can know a little bit of our attendees here, and there are the answers coming here, Chris. So ministry, we have at the top right now 50%, business 30%, and about less than 20% neither. We have a lot of participation today. It's amazing. We are so happy. We have just broke the 100 attendee number. Isn't that great? I'm so blessed. So ASI is growing every week. And this topic is obviously one that is, a lot of people are interested on. We have, Chris, so pretty much on the final results, we have ministry of 49% and business 33%. So pretty much divided, but most of them are ministries and a lot of business owners, and some of them are not. They don't have a ministry or business yet. That doesn't mean that they won't have, right? So Chris, that's a good way to learn our audience.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I'm going to share today can benefit you in any of these situations, whether you're a ministry or a business, or if you don't have any of those things and you're just a lay member who wants to, spend some your time and energy into reaching out to your local community through digital advertising. So this can be a benefit to you. Let's put up some other poll questions here.
Yep, we have another one. What advertising channel do you use most? And we have the options: print, radio, television, online, and other. Let's see our answers coming in. Some people have used mostly online.
Wow.
That's really nice, huh? So 65% of people are using online mostly. Some of them have used print as the priority in their challenge in their strategies. And that's 14%. So there you go. Online, 60%, Chris.
Wow. Yeah, that's a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah.
You see a much lower number of people in this context who are using online. So this is really cool to see. So yeah, let's pull up the last poll question, which here we can. There
you go. More specific. How many of you have ever done digital marketing before? So you have actually done digital marketing campaigns. And then answers are coming in. More than half right now have answered. This is great participation. Thank you so much for everybody. And we encourage you to participate in these polls because they really guide the speaker on how he's going to approach the teaching of what he knows, right? So most of them is, I have never done it. That's 53%. And I've tried it, 30%. And I do it regularly, 10%.
Excellent. This is really, really great to see that so many of you are actually doing it. And yeah, like I said, I'm a little bit surprised many times in this context. I don't really see that. So that's really great. One thing I want to mention here, because obviously we have a short time together tonight. This topic that we're discussing right now is very, very broad. There's no one size fits all cookie cutter solution that works for every business, every ministry out there. And so if you stick around till the end, I'm actually going to give you guys an offer. It's absolutely free. It's a gift to you guys for participating tonight, so that you guys can get a lot of value more individually, so I can understand a little bit more of your nuanced situation and really provide you guys some more in-depth value. So stick around to the end and we'll share that with you. So yeah, like Ruben had mentioned, we've spent a lot of money for clients this year so far in online advertising. And, I've noticed a lot of different things and learned a lot of things in this experience of, doing media buying, paying for ads, and running the full gamut of services for clients, and even myself with my own businesses. So one of the things that I want to just address really quick is maybe this preconceived notion that a lot of people have when it comes to online advertising. And it's this idea that you are entering into this mystical world where you press these buttons and all of a sudden you get a bunch of customers who pay you money and it happens overnight, or you get a bunch of people to sign up for Bible studies or coming to your events or giving you donations. And I just want to tell you guys that this isn't some mystical thing. This is something that actually takes a lot of thought and energy in leading. That leads into the point that I really want to make, which is the biggest thing that you really want to have in all of this is a strategy. Before you go out and you start thinking that you need to do ads on YouTube or Facebook, or you need to do more organic with SEO or content marketing or blogging or any of the above, you need to have a strategy, right? And your strategy really is, it's somewhat simple, and then it gets more complex and granular as you really work through it. But you always need to start with the goal in mind. You always need to understand exactly what you're trying to do. If you're a business, then you need to generate sales. At the end of the day, if your marketing efforts online don't generate sales, it won't be effective. If you are trying to generate Bible study leads, then you need to have that in mind and understand that that's what you're trying to do, because there is a lot of different ways to get to the same place. There's a lot of different roads, so to speak, to the same destination. You can use one of these different tactics like SEO or paid advertising, and one of them may be more effective for you than the other one. So you have to understand what's going to help you get to where you want to be more efficiently than some of these other things. And I want to talk about a principle really quick that I found over the past year and really past couple of years when I reviewed some clients' campaigns that they had already been running or strategies that they already had in place. And I found really a common denominator of why they weren't experiencing success. And it's this principle of having too much friction in your funnel or your customer journey. I want to explain that a little bit more in the context of Amazon.com. All of us on here have heard of Amazon.com. We've probably purchased things from it before. But think about their business model and think about life before Amazon.com. Life before Amazon.com, I'm from Michigan. I would have to go get in my car, start it, heat it up, clean the snow off, drive to the store, walk around, talk to a salesperson that I don't really want to talk to, pick out a product, go get back in my car, drive home. There's so much friction in the process of me having to buy the product that I want, where Amazon.com, their business model is literally eliminating friction, and all you have to do is press your door in 2 days. So when I look at marketing strategies, you want to figure out how to get to the end as quick as possible, spending the least amount of money. Because if you make your potential customers or prospects jump through so many different hurdles before they can actually make a decision, the conversion rate for each one of those hurdles that they have to jump through impacts the overall conversion rate, and it makes it so that it significantly reduces overall. So I'll give you an example. I've seen some ministries recently trying to do evangelism online, and they make people jump through so many different hurdles just to fill out a form so that they can generate a Bible study lead. And at the end of the day, the cost per acquisition, which we'll get into in a little bit later, the cost to get them to actually attend is very, very, very high. Whereas if you ran a simple campaign to get them to sign up a form natively within a platform, you can get them to do that for 200 times less than what they're doing, getting them to go through this full funnel, so to speak. So those are some principles that have really been helpful to build a strategy. And again, you want to have a strategy before you go out and decide what you're going to do, because a lot of people get very, very overwhelmed with this. They don't know if YouTube is the latest and greatest thing that they should be implementing, or if it's Facebook advertising, or if it's TikTok, or if it's SEO. And so you need to think clearly about what you want to accomplish, and then do a lot of research. You can talk to someone like me that can help you put together an effective strategy that will help you accomplish your ultimate goals. But I think we're ready for another poll question here, so we can transition.
Let's go. The acquisition cost or the learning?
The learning one.
Okay. So now we have a different poll, which is right there. A second. There you go. I have ever learned something that helped me in my profession from the Bible or Ellen White? Interesting. How is this related, Chris? I'm curious. We'll see in a bit. So something that is I've learned from the Bible in my profession that is I can apply my profession from the Bible or from Ellen White. So not necessarily spiritual, but actually something practical, right, Chris? Practical apply my profession, right? And
Absolutely.
95% that it has, and never 6%. So a very big difference of opinions here, or experience in this case. 95% I have, and 7% I've never had.
Yeah, so I asked this question because this is something that has really impacted me. Prior to becoming an Adventist, like I said, I went on this long journey of really learning from these different gurus and experts. A lot of them were in the marketing world, and I learned a lot of valuable information from those people. I've spent a lot of money learning from them, but I've learned more about advertising, marketing, sales, just looking at how Jesus did things. And also in the Spirit of Prophecy, she expounds on a lot of different details that you may not necessarily find in the Bible about how Jesus did his ministry. And for me, there's this concept where marketing is really building relationships. That's really all you're doing in marketing, is you're trying to take a stranger and turn them into an advocate for whatever you're doing. And so how do you do that? You do that through relationship. And you can see the way that Jesus did his ministry is exactly that. Jesus built relationships with people, and that's why they followed him. And you can just
That's a great analogy. I never thought about that, because I'm really passionate about learning business cases from the Bible. That's fascinating. It's all about relationship. Exactly. Now I understand where it's coming from. Yeah.
Exactly. And really some things that stand out to me a lot is that Jesus spent more time healing people than he did preaching. Right? Ellen White says this in the Ministry of Healing, and that's really fascinating. Why would he do that? Why would he spend more time healing them? And it's because once he spent that time building the relationship, he now had influence over them. And once he had influence over them, he could get them to make a decision, right? So we were talking about friction a little bit earlier, and this plays into it. There's friction in your marketing funnels and your different steps that you're taking people through to convert them into a sale or a lead, but there's also friction that exists within their mind, right? There are different things that they need to start thinking about you in order to get them to make a decision. So at each phase within your marketing funnel, you need to be accomplishing certain things psychologically with your prospect or interest to get them to make that decision. Us marketers, we call it indoctrination. Some people think that's a strong word, and it may as well be.
Similarities there, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll give you guys an example of how this can be done in the context of a local church, because this will make a lot of sense to you guys. Really, we think about the traditional model of doing marketing for a lot of our church events, and we're using direct response marketing. I'll talk about that a little bit more here, but direct response marketing has to do with getting someone to take action immediately off of the ad that they're consuming. And so we're doing this through many times print. And I don't knock print just because I'm a digital guy. I think that there's a time and place for it and a strategy to where it can work well if you do it correctly. But oftentimes we're skipping the relationship building aspect of marketing in the local church, and we're focusing on generating interest without any rapport. So we're always marketing to a cold audience. They don't think anything about us, and we're trying to get them to think so much about us in one form of communication. So what you want to actually do is take the life of Christ and his ministry and how he spent time building relationships with people before he asked them to do something, and you want to model that in your advertising. You want to put out these different pieces of content, whether it's video on social media, putting money behind it, or you can do written with blogs and sharing that and doing SEO promotion. You can use influencer marketing in this, but really the context of it all is building the relationship with
Building
the
trust,
audience.
right? It's all about
Yeah,
building trust.
the trust and ultimately building that rapport with them so that they like, trust, and respect you. Once you get them to that place, they're easier to sell to. And you can look at very large companies who do this, and really their fancy term for it, and us marketers call it branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to build this rapport with your audience through brand. You're really getting them to think what you want them to think about you, so that when you ask them to buy, they do it, right? So you
And
have
you
direct.
don't even notice, right? Because we think each one of us buys from entities and people that actually have a relationship because we trust them, right? We trust them.
Exactly. And it
And how
goes
do
a
you build
little.
trust, Chris? How can you build trust in online? Like some examples. How can you build trust? If I have a brand, how can I actually be respected by a prospect to consider that they'll give me, actually have a transaction with me, right? I'm gonna give them a product and give me a payment for it.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that, and I'll frame it in the context of someone who may be in a service-based business, because I'm going to say there's a lot of business owners on here, and I'm going to say that a good chunk of you are probably professionals in a service-based business. What you want to do is position yourself to your local community so that they think you're the expert. You're kind of like this local celebrity or expert that knows their craft, and they know what, and now your audience thinks that about you, so that when you ask them to buy, they already think that, and you're trustworthy. And how you can do it in a very practical way. Let's say that you took the top 20 questions that people may have about your industry. You can find those in Facebook groups. You can find those through surveying your community. You can find those through forums and blogs. You can find these conversations that are already happening about your product, your service, your industry, and you can create your own version of your answers to those questions in video form, with your face on the camera, showing your personality, and demonstrating your expertise. And you can put those out on, let's say, Facebook. You put maybe $100 behind each one of those videos, and you target your local territory with that. And
that's called boosting, right? You boost the ad, right? Basically, you boost your video that's not selling anything, but it is answering a question that people are searching for an answer, right?
Exactly. And you may not even send them to a website, right? You're putting money behind that video, which you can do it through boosting, and there's some other technical details with how you can do it from the back end of Facebook and things. We don't have a ton of time to get into that, but you're putting some money behind it. You don't put a link on the ad because Facebook will throttle the ad. If there's a link, they don't want traffic going outside their platform. They stop making money when someone leaves their platform, so they want to keep people in their platform. So you'll have a better cost per impression this way. And what ends up happening is, if you do this long enough, people start thinking what you want them to think about you. You now become the expert in your local area on whatever subject you're a specialist in. And when you're now running these direct response marketing ads where you're trying to get them to act in the moment, you attach some type of incentive to it to act in the moment. You make this irresistible offer so that once they see it, they have to act in the moment. Maybe it's a discount or a freebie or a bundle of some sort. And that friction in their mind, which was previously there before they knew you, when they were a stranger, is now gone because you spent the time.
It's by phases, right? That you first generate that trust, and then at the second stage, you retarget. Let's call it retargeting that same a group of people that have
Yep.
seen you as an expert, and then you might market a product or service to those, right? But prior to that, you warm them up because you are in there, you're seen as an expert in the area that are looking for a solution, right?
Absolutely. And
Stage.
that's dead on. And what I have seen a lot of small businesses do is they think about the end goal, right? In the beginning, I was talking about this. They think about the end goal and the strategy, but they don't think about pre-framing their audience or reducing friction in their mind. They're only thinking about reducing friction in the conversion. So what they do is they go straight for the close. They ask people to buy without building a relationship with them. So what ends up happening is their cost per acquisition, again, we'll get into that in a minute,
Skyrockets.
yeah, it's very, very, very high. So the companies like Coca-Cola and Apple and Nike, they're spending a very, very, very large portion of their advertising dollars on the front end, branding, pre-framing you, getting you to think what they want you to think about them, so that when they do make those offers, those more direct response style ads, their conversion is through the roof, and it's cheaper to do it. You're basically, psychologically, what's happening is you're moving people from lower stages of awareness to higher stages of awareness. You're positioning yourself as a solution to the problem that they are now more aware of because you spent the time actually doing that.
Do you think our audience knows what customer acquisition cost is, or customer acquisition cost is? Do you think so?
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Let's see. Question that we have now is, how many of you are familiar with customer acquisition cost? There we go. I'm familiar. I'm not familiar. Interesting. Well, 50%. Well, we have the majority is not familiar. So why don't you go ahead, and the answers are coming in. I think we should explain what is customer acquisition cost that we have been mentioning. There's so much information, right? That for 45 minutes, actually we're doing 45 minutes of this presentation, and we're leaving 15 minutes for Q&A. So we encourage you that you will put your questions. We have Curtis that is managing the questions. He'll be also chatting with you there, but we want to encourage you to put your questions. So right now the question is for about 66%. They don't know what is customer acquisition costs. Why don't you give us a little bit of education on that, Chris?
So it is what it sounds like. It's the cost to acquire a new customer, really plainly put. But the reason that this is so important is because you need to, as a business or ministry, when you are putting money into your advertising, you need to know what your return on your investment is going to be. And this number, figuring out how much it's going to cost you to acquire a new customer or lead, is going to play into that number very, very significantly. You also need to figure out what your margins are as far as your profit goes, and all these things. They all work together. Marketing is really a numbers game.
So it might cost me $100 to acquire a client, right? Because I've spent $1,000 and I get 10 leads. That's $100 per lead. But then I'm making only $80, right? So I'm running at a loss on that campaign. That's what it is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to get more back than what you're putting in, and so this.
Then it's a numbers game because you can replicate. If you nail down that part, I'm spending 20, and for each 20 that I'm spending, I know I'm getting 100. Then you can start escalating the campaign, right?
Absolutely. And this number, a lot of times people don't think about it as in depth as they should, because what you want to do, if you have something where, for example, you want to take and acquire, let me back up. It's easier to sell to someone who's already purchased from you than it is to try to find new customers all the time. Would you agree, Ruben?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what are some strategies you use or you recommend to use to sell more to existing clients? Because actually, I can spend $100 to acquire a client, but I know that in my first sale, I'm not going to recover my investment because I'm only going to make, let's say, 80, but I know I'm going to have recurring sales to that same client, right? So there's something called the lifetime value of a client, right? How much I'm going to be able to get return from that investment. So they will continue to purchase from me. So if they make 3 or 4 purchases, that's what? Another $300 or $400, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you want to think about what Ruben just said, which is lifetime value of a customer. On average, how much money does someone spend with you over the course of their life? You may run a campaign and, like Ruben said, be at break even for the first transaction. And in your mind, you're thinking this campaign wasn't very profitable. But then you look back at it, 2-3 years later, and that campaign actually had a 10 times return on your investment because a good portion of those customers that you acquired actually stuck around and purchased more things from you over the course of that business relationship. So this is really important. One of the things that we do as advertisers, strategizing with our clients, is we figure out how to acquire customers at break even. We want to do that, especially if you can do it for something that's very scalable, like a digital product or service, because this is where a lot of you, even in self-supporting ministries here, is very important. If you're constantly putting money out advertising, you need to get something in return. So if you can figure out a way to be at break even on the first transaction, then you are actually doing very, very, very well, because even though those people who you've been advertising to may not necessarily be purchasing with all of them, you still have branded them, right? So what you're now doing, in a sense, is you're
creating a relationship.
Yeah, you're advertising for free, and you're creating a relationship with them over time. So you're paying for your own advertising with that first transaction. You can do this through digital products. For an example, if you had some type of ebook or course that you could offer them for very cheap, what we do sometimes is we'll go through and we'll figure out the price point of the first product that we have in the funnel based on how much the cost per acquisition is to get them to buy something like that, so that we're at break even. And then from there, we further the relationship so that we can sell them on other things, which will generate us more income.
Very good. And some examples, can you share with us also some examples of, not naming clients, of good strategies of nurturing that relationship? You can use also email marketing, right? And how can you retarget the same client without spending money, right? Because sometimes we think that we have to keep on spending money with the same client, but that's not true, right? Because we acquire the client and the relationship, when we can get return from that, right? Do you have some examples you can share with us on that area?
Exactly. What you want to do is ultimately own the traffic, right? There's traffic that you own and there's traffic that you don't own. If you're paying Facebook for traffic, that's traffic that you don't own, right? You're putting money into that. Whereas what Ruben's talking about right now is an email list, or maybe you have a text list, or subscribers on another platform that you own. You can go in and market to them over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't cost you anything to market to them. So you can do this a lot of times, through email, through text messaging, and then also a big one is going to be, depending on the where your business is. If you're a business that's more focused on local, you're kind of a brick and mortar service-based business, or you're not really attached to a location, maybe you're doing e-commerce online. YouTube is a really big thing for our e-commerce clients, because you are getting the best traffic out of there. You're getting people who are actively searching for what you have to offer. The things that they're typing in, those keywords, reveal the problem that they're having. And if you put together the right strategy to rank your videos for when they're searching those keywords, your videos are going to show up. They're going to see you. and they're going to subscribe. They're going to get more familiar with you. You're going to start owning that traffic, but you have to know how to push people into things that you own, because you don't want to be in a place where you're constantly paying for traffic over and over and over and over again. So one of the big things that we've done for clients is we use messenger bots on Facebook.
How does that work?
Yeah, so you can set up these ads. You can set them up organically as well, but you can set them up with ads to really ramp it up quickly, where you basically have an ad that you'd click on, and from it, it starts a conversation in Facebook Messenger automatically. And from that, they're subscribed to a list inside of the CRM, the customer relationships management tool that you're using. And now it pulls in, if you set it up correctly, you can pull in their name, their email, their phone number, all of that stuff. And you can put them into a segmented list in that CRM. And you can now own that contact and market it to them over and over and over again. So,
with you giving something, right? Like you said, like an ebook or some type of initial service for free. You got to give something initially because that's what triggers the interest and the relationship, right? It's fascinating the example that you gave, because the Bible gives these nuggets of business experience that we can apply. We can see that relationship is fundamental also to bring somebody to the truth, right? Because people trust other people, right? And we gotta establish that relationship with unknown. We have to start with that first step.
Exactly. Yeah. So what Ruben's talking about right now is we refer to it as a lead magnet. It's something of value that we're giving in exchange for their contact information. So, for example, realtors may offer, the top 10 tips for buying a house in 2020, or someone in the health and fitness space may do the top 10 tips for losing belly fat, or something like that, right? And it intrigues the audience. It builds curiosity. They come to the website or the chat bot or however you're executing that, and they want to access this information that they deem as valuable, and they're willing to exchange their contact information for it. So you can do a lot of different things to acquire leads, build an audience that you can market to over and over again, which is what you ultimately want to do in a long-term strategy. And you can do a lot of different things as well to make sure that your advertising is practically free, where you're getting them to actually pay you to advertise to them. So there's a lot of different things that you can implement there. One of the things that I think about with this is when you take this approach from offering this free value, like we were talking about before, with running a branded campaign on Facebook, you're positioning yourself as an expert in your local area. That content, that value, is what we call ungated free content. You're not asking them to opt in to receive it, but once you offer this ungated free content, you now want to transition them into a place where you have gated content, right? Where they have to now put in their email, put in their phone number in order to access this content. And then once they've taken that step in the relationship, you can now push them over to paid content, where you're trying to get them to pay you for your advice or something like that. And then you can start upselling them at different services and bundles and things like that. So,
and Chris, you have also participated in in actually some important campaigns of the of ministry and actually evangelism, right? What has worked for you, and what has been your experience? Because I've seen a couple of comments here also of examples of how we can use these same strategies to get people to know the message, right? And how can we, what have you learned? I know you've been involved with the It Is Written campaign recently. What did you learn from that campaign specifically in the next 2 or 3 minutes before we go to Q&A?
Absolutely. A big thing with that campaign is is one of the things that I shared in the beginning, which is learning how to reduce friction so that you can
Mhm.
ultimately get people to do what you want them to do. If you want to get people to sign up for Bible studies, you need to think through that and reduce as much friction as you possibly can.
Examples of
Because
friction are, so people might know
um,
examples, like
examples,
filling up a lot of forms and a lot of
yeah,
steps, right? Mhm.
exactly. Steps. So let's say that we could walk through this funnel really quick, where they see an ad on Facebook
Mhm.
and they have to click on that ad. So that's one piece of friction. Once they click on that ad, they go to a page where they have to register for the event. That's another piece of friction. From there, they get these reminder emails and texts over the next few days that reminds them about the upcoming event. Those are more pieces of friction because they're being communicated to, and they may not necessarily answer them, and maybe 10 days later they totally forget.
Right.
And then they have to attend night 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 all the way through down to the end to engage or sign up for Bible studies. And there's different appeals throughout the event, of course, but yeah, you wanna work through things backwards. Start with the goal in mind, and then work backwards from there. We've spent a lot of time. I've got some Bible workers who actually work for me. Um, we do some research and development for this type of thing, and what we found is that if you use messenger bots to generate Bible study leads, you can get them for under $5 all day long.
Mhm.
I get them for about 50 cents to $1. Um,
Enrolling in Bible studies, you mean?
enrolling in Bible studies,
That's amazing, yeah. Low
speaking
cost.
to, yeah, speaking to a Bible worker directly, and jumping on Zoom, phone calls, things like this. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can also, um, you know, get them to go to an email list, which the friction there is that they may not necessarily open the emails that you send them to try to get them to sign up for the Bible study, right?
Mhm.
Whereas in Messenger, it reduces all the friction because they click on it and it starts the conversation immediately with the person on the other end so that they can start Bible studies right away. We've developed sequences where we have people opting in for automatic studies where they get the
Mhm.
first one immediately, and then 2 days later they get the next one, and then the next one and the next one. And
Like
before,
instead of giving them after 10, 20 days, give one by one, right? I do the
yep,
first one and then the second one. Yeah.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
we can
Little things that you can reduce what you talk about, which is so important, which is reducing friction.
exactly.
Mhm.
And a big part of that is when they go through the first one or the second one, we can see if they've opened it or not. So we're
Mhm.
tracking that, and then from there, we can follow up with them. How was
Mhm.
the first study? How was the second study? And it further qualifies them. A more qualified person that we want to talk to is someone who's gone through 3 or 4 Bible studies. So again, there's a lot of different ways to get to the same result. Some of them cost more. Some of
Mhm.
them are very slow, right? You want to figure out your strategy and look out at all of the different options and formulate something that's going to give you the best results in the long term, in the short term, that's going to be inexpensive and effective.
Well, Chris, time flies, and we just started like an introduction. I feel right, just like the
I know.
first two or three steps, and we want to give some opportunity for Q&A now. And if you could put your questions on the chat box, I'm seeing a couple of them here already. And the first one we have, Chris, is what are the avenues that one can use for low-cost social uploads, such as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram? I'm not sure about social uploads. So low cost. I think we talked about that, but you want to give a little bit more details of low-cost strategies for these channels?
Yeah, so here's a big thing. Media consumption with the coronavirus, COVID-19, has gone up dramatically. More people are
Mm.
spending time online, and how the pricing is determined by many of these platforms is basic economics. It's supply and demand. It's not a static pricing structure, meaning that it's not $1 per 1,000 impressions all day, every single time. It's determined by how many placements are available within the ad inventory of the audience that you're trying to target. So
it's always changing, right? All day,
yeah,
right? All day,
it's
almost
always
hourly. Right?
it's always changing. So to really dumb it down and make it simple, and this is a very big mistake I see a lot of people making, when you get too narrow with your audience, it's more expensive because you're targeting a smaller group of people, which means that the supply for the ad placements is much lower than if you're trying to target a larger audience. So we've run campaigns in the context of local, we've run campaigns in the context of statewide, national, and then even global campaigns. And we've done a bunch of tests to see the cost per result with the audience sizes. And every time we loosen up our targeting options a little bit to target a wider audience, the cost per result goes down significantly.
Very good. Excellent. We have an interesting comment here. There's a strong connection between advertising and preaching indeed. The advertising comes from advertir, from the word French. The word for preaching in the Bible, kerusso, in Greek, means the make of public knowledge, announce, proclaim, disseminate. Exactly what is advertising. So we really can learn a lot from the Bible. Do you have some experience with LinkedIn, Chris? The question here about LinkedIn. Anything about LinkedIn? Does it work the same way?
Yeah, so with LinkedIn, we've done stuff with that. That's not our primary go-to platform for a lot of our clients, but I do have some suggestions, and I'm familiar with it. Basically, there's two different styles that you can do with the ad placements. You can do the newsfeed placement, and then you can also do the direct message placement. Direct message placement costs a lot more, but one of the things that you can do with LinkedIn that Facebook took away is you can target people based on job titles.
Okay.
Right? Which is very, very good if you're a B2B.
Business to business, right.
Yeah, in the business to business space.
Okay, another one is on Facebook, how do you reach those that are followers of a specific page? That's a practical question. So I want to reach people that actually follow another page. Can I do that, Chris?
In some cases you can, in some cases you can't. Facebook doesn't have an exact release of the information on as to why they do that, why they allow certain interest groups versus others. So it can be somewhat.
So it's not a straight answer, is it?
Yeah, it can be somewhat daunting when you build your whole strategy around targeting a specific audience around a page, and then you go and find out that they removed that targeting option or something there. So in some cases, you may have to get very creative and think of some other things that may attract that audience that are available as targeting options.
Another question, a lot of questions coming in, and another one is, what are the pros and cons of niche marketing or broad marketing? So we did talk a bit about that, which is the branding part, but I think that most of the branding that you talked about was actually branding to your niche, right? To your target, isn't it? Or you just you just push for a brand as a whole open market, not niche market. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm going to explain this a little bit more because there may be people on this call who don't understand what's exactly being asked. But there are different. I'm going to first define what your audience is and what your market is, and I'll tell you what it isn't as well. Many people, when you start asking them, what is your audience, what is your market, who is your target, they give you this very long list, and they're almost explaining their avatar, their ideal customer that they want to attract. And that's very true, and you can segment it, and it's very good to know that, especially when you're writing ads and you're in the creative process, because you need to know how to communicate to them. But very basically, your audience is someone who already has a desire or a problem in their heart, in their mind. They have this thing that already exists within them that you can solve for them, right? Or that you can fulfill for them. it's not someone that you can, implant a desire, in. So too broad of marketing would be trying to educate people who don't even know that they have a problem or may not even have a problem that you can solve for them. You're going to waste a lot of time and money trying to convince those people. The niche marketing that you're talking about, which you'll get the best cost per acquiring a customer from, is if you're targeting people who are aware that they have a problem that they need solved, and they are ultimately aware of you as a solution. So with the branding style advertising I was recommending earlier, you're taking people from a place where they're aware of their problem, but they're not aware of the solution, to where they're aware of their problem and they're aware of the solution, but they're not aware of you as a solution, all the way down to the bottom where they're aware of their problem, they're aware of you as the solution to their problem. Those people are so much easier to sell to. So you want to do both. You want to be marketing to people who are in market, and you want to be marketing to people who are out of market simultaneously.
Very good. Another question is YouTube passing out of vogue, or is it still a good idea to build my own YouTube channel? What do you think, Chris?
I would say it's never a smart idea to put all of your eggs in one basket. I would say that I wouldn't neglect YouTube. It's an amazing platform. With certain industries that are getting censored right now, they're having a lot of challenges with it. I had a client who completely moved everything to their own platform. They're making way more money now, and their audience gets exactly what they want, and they don't have any ads. So it really just depends on what industry you're in. But yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket for sure, because what's hot today may not be hot tomorrow. And if you wake up in the morning, they disabled your YouTube account, and that's the only place where
that's happening right now.
They own your following, right? You want to own your following. Get them email, get them in the chat.
That's an interesting point, because you think that you have 100,000 followers, let's say, or subscribers in YouTube, and they're yours. They're not yours. They're YouTube's, right?
Exactly.
And you don't even know who they are, which is incredible, right? You don't know who are the subscribers of your channel, and who owns your subscription base is YouTube, not you. So it's an excellent point. Exactly. That be careful, because even Instagram, all these platforms, you think you have these, they're yours, but they're not yours. That's an interesting point. What are your thoughts about marketing for fundraising? And we just have about 2 minutes, then we have to wrap it up, because we have a last question and appeal also and actually we have an offer. So why don't you, Chris, in just 2 minutes, answer this very quick question and give you an offer, and then at the end we also have an important announcement. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So yeah, I have nonprofit clients, and we do donor acquisition and fundraising for them. It's a great thing to do on social media, especially Facebook's fundraising option that they have. They collect funds for you natively within Facebook, and they don't take anything from it if you're a C.E.O. 501c3. So I'd really recommend checking that out. And one of the things, I'll touch on this really quick, you can, if you build a solid enough community around your cause, they will start fundraising on behalf of your organization through the different tools that Facebook has in place. So they'll start these birthday fundraisers or special event fundraisers.
Great tip.
And so I recommend checking that out.
Well, Chris, we have 1 minute. Please be fast, because we want to keep this in an hour. Then I have one last question, and we're going to wrap it up. I think that we just feels like we have an introduction. We can do many of these, but it was great. Go ahead, Chris, and we're very grateful that you have an offer for everybody.
Yeah. So with this call, we are really just scratching the surface, and it's somewhat of a challenge for me to just speak to a very broad audience and give you some type of cookie cutter principle that may help you. I hope that you guys got a lot of value out of this today. I had a lot of fun and enjoyed sharing with you. But what I want to do is give you an opportunity to schedule some time with me. So I'm offering a 30-minute consultation absolutely free to you guys, where we can jump on and dive a little bit deeper into your unique situation, and I can give you some advice that's more specific. So
that's great, Chris. That's great. Can you write on? Here we go. Curtis has it. Very good. Thank you, Chris. Curtis, he has the offer right there, so you can follow up with Chris on that link. And we are approaching the hour, and I have a very, very important question. But before that, Chris, thank you so much for sharing with us today at the ASI Hour. I feel that we just scratched the surface, but it was great, and a lot of people have certainly enjoyed. We have some records here today of attendance, so we're very, very thankful for your participation. And I encourage you for next week, we have a very important event. And I have a poll question for all of you, which I'm going to put now. And this is the question. Let's see. So next week we have you already registered for ASI Virtual Convention? Let's see. Next week, starting on Wednesday, we have our ASI convention, yearly convention. Unfortunately, can't be in presence, but we're very blessed that we're going to be able to do it virtually. So it's free, and the question is, have you registered? We see 73%. Not yet, but I will tonight. Well, that's good. All right, there you go. And some have not planning, can't attend, but the majority has registered or will be registering tonight. So thank you very much, Chris, and we hope to see you again. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining ASI Hour, and see you next week for ASI Convention Virtual. Have a good week. Blessings.